Supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Dynamic Dog Owner, the podcast designed to support you, the dog owner, in your dog parenting journey. Because let's face it, it's not always easy being a dog parent. There's so much going on, so many different things to factor in. And of course, I think the thing we always have to remember is that we don't actually speak the same language as our dog, which can make things quite challenging. So we aim on the podcast to help you look at the world from your dog's perspective, to see things with a fresh set of eyes and hopefully impact your dog parenting journey in a positive way. So today we're going to look at a little topic we've talked about on the podcast before many times, but we're going to talk about what you need to get a successful recall. Look back at previous episodes. There's episodes about tips and, different bits about recall. But today we're going to look at the 4 key areas that we have to kind of almost tick off of our list to make sure that we have a reliable recall. Most people, not everyone, but most people have an aim that they would like their dog to be off lead. And I completely get that. It's so much easier. If you can have your dog off lead and trust them wholeheartedly that they're going to stay with you, not run off, not go and be a pest and say hello to people, etc., then yes, of course, it makes your walks so much easier. You haven't got a lead to hold. You haven't got to worry about lead pulling. You can relax a bit more. It helps your posture and your gait, etc., while you're walking. So many benefits. But for most people, that dream is not a reality because it's tough. It's hard work to get your dog fully trusted off lead. As you guys know, if you listen lots, I have 3 dogs. There's only one that I trust and properly trust off lead. The others, I don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that because dogs aren't robots. Dogs have individual personalities. They have strengths and weaknesses, and every dog is different. So if your dog never gets to the point of being let off lead, don't worry about it. My eldest dog, Dave, he doesn't go off lead. I don't trust him off lead. Variety of reasons. I mean, not that I don't trust him. He wouldn't run off. He has a wide range, so he likes to go a little bit further away from me than I would like. And he's very independent. He's like, yeah, I'm just busy doing my thing. I'll be back in a bit. He doesn't go far, but he doesn't... For me, I want 110% focus when they're off lead. So if you can't give me that, you're not going off lead. In certain places where I know there's no distractions, etc., then he's fine to be off lead. But majority of the time, no. Because he's a friendly dog. He likes to go and say hello to people as well. And once he's said hello, he'd come back to me. But he has to go and say hello. Not in a rude way. It was when he was younger. But now he's older. It's not rude. It's not impolite. It's just I know that in that moment, he's likely to think independent thoughts rather than thinking about what I would like him to do. Fred is a little bit kamikaze still. He's still young. And I think, again, teenage years, we're working on it still. Nothing wrong with that. And both of them are more show lines rather than working lines, which I think has a massive difference or massive influence in this topic. Rem is the one I trust off lead. He's a working lab. He's devoted to pleasing people and he's very committed to people. He chooses to walk next to you all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the fact that he wants to do that and the others don't. In fact, I have more of an issue with him when he's off lead because I'm like, go and have fun. You don't have to stick with me. And he's like, no, must walk next to you. It's fine. So yeah, some dogs will be off lead, some dogs will be on lead. It doesn't really matter. But most people do strive to have their dogs off lead. So what we're going to look at today is the 4 areas that I think we need to consider. And I say, if we can tick those 4 areas off, then you're on pretty good track to having a really good, reliable recall when they're off lead. So the first thing, let me just mention what they all are and then we'll go through them in depth. So the first one is recall cue. So knowing your recall cue. The second is practicing that around distractions. So being okay with distractions, general everyday distractions. So not being too distracted by birds and smells, etc. The next bit is focus and engagement. So for me, if you haven't got focus and engagement, then you're kind of setting yourself one step back. Because if you've got that, then your dog's going to choose to hang around with you anyway. And then the final thing is emotions. How does your dog feel around certain things coming into their environment? So we're going to explore what each one of those means. And then maybe you can give yourself a little checklist, see which area you need to work on. Because most people come to us and say, my dog's recall's terrible. And actually, their recall's not terrible. Their recall is really good, but it's one of the other areas they're falling down in. So the recall cue, let's look at that first. What is your recall cue? So your recall cue is a word that you say or a whistle sound that you pip. That means please come back to me, in a nutshell. Most of the time it is used incorrectly. So for me, my recall cues, so my whistle and I say come, I have two. That's fine to have two, by the way. It means I need you here, I need you here now. I don't overuse it, and a lot of people do. And I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls with strengthening your recall cue, is that people overuse it. People use it out of desperation if their dog's not listening to them. People use it when their dog's on a lead pulling to ask them to come back to them. And I get it. I see your logic, but each thing is slightly different. So for me, recall cue is I need you now. Please don't ever not listen to this. So to get them to not, that doesn't sound a double negative, hang on. So to get them to always listen, we want to teach them it always works, which sounds backwards because obviously we want it to work when we're in the moment and it might not work or they're distracted by something. But to get the level of strength and power behind our recall cue, we need to practice it where it's foolproof. So that in the moment when you see a whatever or you see a dangerous situation, you need your dog back to you, they don't think twice. Whereas if you use it in situations where you're not reinforcing it and you're actually overusing it, and I'll talk about the different ways of overusing it in a second, then they're always going to sit there and go, should I, shouldn't I? So different ways you can overuse it. So to practice a recall cue, personally for me, I practice it when I know my dogs are going to listen. So I practice it when there's no distractions around, when they're just busy sniffing. If they've been distracted, say like Fred, for example, with a bird, as soon as he turns away from it, I recall him to me. So I'm doing it at a moment, not when he's busy watching the bird, but when he's kind of got to the moment and gone, it's losing interest. I can listen to mum now. And obviously gradually then we can just draw it back a little bit. We tend to use it. So that's where you should use it. You should use it when you don't need it, because that's the biggie. Don't wait until there's that moment where you hope it works and use it. Use it when you don't think it, well, you don't need it, but you think it's going to work. You're building up 100% reliability in it and it always working. Always reward it. A lot of people don't want to reward their recall. Always reward your recall. Because again, it's that thing, you never want them to second guess it and go, should I, shouldn't I? Every time I come back, I get to have fun with you. I get treats, I get toys, I get fuss. It's great. Where people overuse their recall cue, personally, I find, is in situations where they think they need to say it and the dog's not going to listen. So you call your dog, you'll say whatever you say. They're busy doing something else. You then say it again. You say it again. You say it again. They listen on the 5th time and you go, oh, brilliant. But they've actually learned I can ignore them the first however many times and I'll just come on the next one. People use it, say, when dogs are on the end of their lead. People use it when they're trying to get their dog's focus. And then for your poisoning and weakening your cue. So it's used as a desperate cue almost in a way. So just think to yourself, when do I use it? Can I use it less in terms of, is there something else I can do? Like, for example, if your dog's putting on the lead, we can look at other skills. Do I use it as a desperate plea or is it actually an instruction my dog knows? So you need to get your recall cue as strong as it can possibly be. But the other things that we're going to talk about in a second, if you can crack them, you're actually not going to need your recall cue, which sounds weird. So, for example, with my Rem, who is trusted off lead all the time, I rarely use my recall cue. Rarely. But when I do use it, he's like, bam, I know what that means. And again, with Fred, I use it when I know he's going to succeed, but I don't use it all the time because we've focused a lot and worked hard on focus and engagement, which brings us on to the other 2 topics or 3 topics. So one of the other areas that you need to make sure you've cracked and got really good to aid your successful recall is distractions. So practicing recalls around distractions, because think of distractions, and again, we've talked on it previous times in the podcast as well, but think of distractions as being levels. We can't expect them to recall away from something really distracting, like, I don't know, a big smelly pile of straw, manure, whatever, if we haven't practiced on just general smells. So we need to practice recall around distractions. We practice recall in the garden, brilliant, it works. That's another point actually where people overuse it. They use their recall cue to call their dog in from the garden. Personally, I don't get the logic, because you're not saying it's an emergency, I need you here now. You're just trying to get them to come inside. So personally, I have a come on in boys cue. So it's just, and you come. It doesn't mean please come to me, because then we're putting negative association into their recall. Side tangent, sorry. So practicing around distractions and getting your dog used to everyday distractions and learning, even though these things are distracting, I can actually deal with them and they're not too distracting after all. And that's, every dog's different what they find distracting, but the general stuff I'm talking about, not the big stuff. So general stuff like smells, birds, bin lorries, traffic, all of those kind of things that naturally just get your dog's interest. Smells are probably the biggest distraction. And again, it's as with anything, we can teach the recall cue beautifully and get it great, but they need to then practice it around distractions. Go, can I still listen if this is happening? Start with your low level, easy distractions. So I've just finished having a sniff, can I recall? Gradually we can bring it back to I'm in the middle of a sniff, can I recall? I've seen a bird, or I've started chasing a bird, can I recall? So can I recall when I am distracted? Practice that, but always on a long line, because they then can't make the wrong choice. And again, this is an area with recall in particular that people are reluctant to keep them on a long line. And I get it. Again, it's a faff. It's a bit of a faff to hang around, but it prevents self-rewarding. So if your dog's not on a long line and they're in that moment of, should I listen to mum, dad, whoever, should I go and do this instead? There's nothing to stop them from making the wrong choice. Your long line helps them to make the right choice, to connect with you and listen, and therefore you're making sure you can reinforce it. The other area is focus and engagement. Now, focus and engagement for me is probably the most important thing out of everything to work on. And I really kind of honed that in with Fred, because Fred is a very distracted dog. So I realised the importance of focus engagement when Fred was young, because he is like a little away with the fairies. He's getting much better now, he's maturing. But as a puppy and as an adolescent, he was hard work just to get his focus. So it's all we worked on. And now when we're out on a walk, he doesn't stray too far from me, because we've worked so much on please engage with me. So it's not recall. I'm not asking him to come to me. I'm just saying, if you hang out near me, if you're next to me, if you're looking at me, if we're having a conversation, then good things happen. And this is the main thing for me. Think of your recall cue as, I need you to come to me now. Focus and engagement is, please hang out with me. It's fun to be with me. You don't need to go further away. So the underlying of recall is focus and engagement. And that's why for Rem, for example, who is 110% focused on me, I don't ever need to recall him, because he never wants to go too far away from me. Therefore, I don't have to use my recall cue. With Dave, it's a little bit less, but with Fred especially, he'll trot along, and he's a trotter because he's a golden retriever. So he'll trot along, and after about 3 or 4 paces of meters-ish, maybe actually, depending on where we are, he'll stop and turn around and go, oh, mum, you still there? And he engages with me and reconnects with me because of all the work we've done on focus and engagement. So focus and engagement is rewarding choices. It's not asking for anything. And I think, again, this is a concept that people find hard to get their head around, because we are a species who want to talk. You're listening to a podcast. We like listening and we like talking. And some of us, mentioning no names, probably talk a bit too much. But we then turn into white noise, and we want to put a cue on everything. So it's a common thing we get asked in classes. What do I call this? When do I put a cue on? They haven't learned it yet. Hold fire. So we want to talk. We want to give instructions. We want to feel like we're in control. And we think that being in control is giving instruction. But this is something we work heavily on with all of our clients. If we give your dogs choice and they make the right choice, they're doing it because they want to do it, not because they're being asked to, and therefore it's much more powerful and much more long lasting. So focus and engagement is all about rewarding choices to be with you, rewarding connections, whether it's eye contact, being near you, etc. That way your dog is focused on you, choosing to hang out near you, they're closer, therefore you're not having to worry, your range isn't as big in terms of where are the distractions, because you're only having to worry about a smaller area. And that's the underlie of everything else. So when you've cracked focus and engagement, it assists your off lead time. And I suppose really this podcast shouldn't be about recall. It should be about off lead time, because we're not recalling, it's off lead. And in fact, I might even change the title to accommodate that. The final 4. So remember, if you tick these 4 off and you go, yep, my dog's cool with that, cool with that, cool with that. This is when you're going to get the results. That's when you're going to go off lead time's easy. This is the biggie. And this is the one we see dogs struggle with probably the most out of everything else. Emotions. Obviously dogs have them, and that's okay. We want our dogs to have emotions. We want them to think, we want them to feel. We don't want to suppress emotions, because we all know as people, if we've had your emotions suppressed, you're not happy. You're always second guessing. You feel, the joy is taken out. So we don't want to suppress emotions, but we can help them to formulate new emotions, change emotions, and start to have sort of more appropriate emotions. So generally when it comes to off lead time, the emotions we see are things like, I want to go and say hello to other dogs. It's an emotion. I'm excited around other dogs. I want to go and say hi. Fear. I'm a bit scared by this situation. Some dogs will choose to run away. Other dogs will choose to run and fight it and go, hey, I'm big and scary. They're the main ones. Obviously, there's loads of other emotions too. You've got like wariness, uncertainty, loads of different emotions that can come into it. The biggest one is probably the excitement factor, because dogs are sociable, obviously. They like other dogs, they like people. They generally want to go and say hello to other dogs. We work with a lot of reactive dogs, and majority of them are friendly, over friendly, want to be best mates with everyone. And that's the emotion that is then driving unsuccessful off lead time. Because if you think about it, it's in those moments where, say, you're walking your dog, they're off lead, it's lovely, they spot another dog and they run over and say hello. It's not a focus and engagement issue, because they were focused and engaged with you before. This is where most people say, my dog's recall was great until. Their recall was great. Their focus and engagement was great. You've practiced around distractions. The recall cue is really strong. But they can't help but go and say hello. That's when it is an emotional cause for the recall not being very good, or the off lead time not being very good, because it's their emotions that are driving behaviour. And we know emotions drive behaviour. Of course they do. There's that saying, and now let me see if I get it right off the top of my head. I'm not very good at remembering it. Basically, behind every behaviour, so action, is a feeling, so an emotion, and behind every emotion is a need. So if you think about that, we see the behaviour as dogs running off and going and saying hello to other dogs, and it's really annoying. There's an emotion behind that, and the emotion is, wow, I love dogs, I'm so excited, I want to go and say hi. The need underlying that is, I am a sociable being and I need to be around other dogs. So getting the healthy balance is tough. We have a few playmates that we know we can play with, but every other buddy I ignore. Think of it like walking down the street. I always say, if you were to walk down the street and hug everyone you saw, people would look at you like you were bonkers, because it's not the done thing. You hug people you know. You don't hug everybody. And a sociable dog who wants to say hello to everybody is going around hugging everyone effectively, and then wonders why some dogs don't like it and tell them off. It's fair and it's understandable. So we can look at the emotional driver and then try and change emotions. If your dog then goes, there's a dog, but it's cool, I don't need to go and say hello, then you haven't got a recall issue. You haven't got a focus and engagement problem. You haven't got your distraction issue. The emotions are in check. Hey, off lead time's really fun. And it can take a long time to get to that point. Rem's emotions. So, obviously I said, Rem's a little bit of a star. He's so lovely. He has his issues, and if you've listened to the podcast before, you'll know there are a few of them. And he's been a real challenge, but maturity, he's 6 this year. So he's 6 in a couple of months' time. And the maturity has really kicked in. And since Christmas, I kind of upped my game a little bit. I'd become a bit complacent with where he was, but I upped my game. And in the last couple of months, I've seen massive improvements. He's great off lead. He's great around distractions. He'll watch anything go by. Nothing phases him. Or if it does, I'm like, oh, that's out of character. Nothing phases him. He will walk anywhere, do anything. He's not phased by stuff, which is weird for an anxious dog, but hey, he's anxious about other things. So his focused engagement is there. His recall cue is spot on. His distractions are great. The only thing letting down his off-lead time, which is where I would pop him back on a lead, was dogs. Not I want to go and say hi, but he's more of a, oh God, there's another dog there. This is awkward. What do I do? Do I say hello to it? Does it say hello to me? Is it being nice? Is it giving off weird vibes? I don't know. I'm just going to lay down and look a bit scared. And then if they get too close, he'd stalk towards them. So obviously I know where his range is. Pop him on a lead. Over the last 2 months, I've been working on it heavily, like loads. And this weekend, actually, we went for a walk. We're really busy. We went to Windsor. I love Windsor. Grew up near Windsor. I'm not obviously that far away from it here in Buckinghamshire, but went to Windsor for the day, walked around the town, really, really busy. Went for a lovely walk up the long walk. Loads of people, loads of dogs. And I thought, he can do this. So he was off the lead and he made brilliant choices. He didn't lay down once. He didn't look scared by anybody. He didn't look... A couple of times he kind of looked a little bit, oh, that one's a bit weird. Then was like, no, mum's all good. Because we've worked so much on his emotions over the last couple of months. And forever, really. But it's kind of been a bit of a push the last couple of months. And I'm seeing amazing results. But it was the one thing that was letting him down. Not in an overexcited way, but in a wary way. Or an anxious way. Now, I trust him even more off lead around other dogs. Because that was his only fear issue. Now we're going to be enjoying off-lead time in busier places even more, which is great. So those are the 4 things that often we don't think about. We think of recall and off-lead time as simply I need to train a response to come, whistle, hear, whatever it is you say. But actually there's so much more going on with a recall that it's good to be aware of it. It's good to be aware of the different factors that influence off-lead time and successful recall as we see it. So have a little think about you and your dog, or dogs if you've got more than one. Sort of use those 4 areas. So distractions, recall cue, focus and engagement, and emotions. Where are they at with each one on a scale of 1 to 10? Which ones do you need to work on? If your recall and off-lead time isn't 100% enjoyable, there's probably a little niggle somewhere in one of those 4 areas. Have a little think about it. Can you work on it? If you need help and guidance with that, obviously you know where we are. But those are the 4 areas that we need to tick off our to-do list, make sure we've got sorted to be able to enjoy nice, relaxed, off-lead time. Hopefully this episode's been useful. And if you've got any questions about those 4 areas, do drop me a message and let me know. I would love to talk more about it. Have a lovely week and I'll catch up with you really soon. Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.